And there might be some of you that says, gosh, I'm just ready to give up. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, just know that you are right there and the breakthrough happens just beyond what we're going through. So even if you are like, feels like you're 3 feet from gold, just trust a couple more steps, and you're going to get there. So don't give up on your dreams before the magic can happen.
This is Intentionally Ever After. Join intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek for a series of personal conversations and coaching sessions with various people about how living with intention shows up for them.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Intentionally Ever After. Today, I am very excited to be chatting with my new friend, Teri Karjala. Teri, welcome.
Hello and welcome. It's been great. Thank you.
Teri, will you kindly introduce yourself to folks?
Yes. So I'm Teri Karjala with Talking With Teri. So I've taken my 25 years of counseling experience, I've combined it with energy psychology, and then applied the principles of quantum physics to really help women entrepreneurs primarily start to create and catapult their businesses in a much more efficient, powerful way, utilizing universal laws so that they can create, more clients, more money, more freedom, but most importantly, more impact in the world. And, you mentioned to introduce fun things. I truly believe that I was a mermaid in a past life. So I just absolutely love the water and I love anything adventure. So there you go.
That was incredible. Okay. Connect these two ideas for me, please. Mermaid and quantum physics. Ready, go.
I have no idea. I just am drawn to the water. So if we want to pull, this will be the first time I say this and maybe the last, but everything's energy, right? And when I'm in the water, I feel connected to everything and everyone. And so that would be the tie to quantum physics, right?
That was actually very good. So you are geographically located in Colorado. What body of water do you connect with there?
Oh, gosh, none. You know what? We just bought a boat. We are going to be out on the lake this entire summer. When my daughter's not in softball, we are going to be at the lake. I promise you that. My husband and I both grew up in Kansas, where we had lakes all over the place, as do we have here. It just, some lakes are just obviously up in the mountains and they're just too cold, to be a part of it, even in the summer months, So we found some really great lakes and we're just going to be, so that's how I'm going to get my need met, is being around the water this summer.
That sounds great. So it sounds like there's a temperature threshold for success here.
Yes, this is true. I just am not willing to do a bodysuit. You can be in lakes they're amazing. And there's been a time or two where I was like, let's just do it. And we didn't have a bodysuit or a wetsuit. And I think I got maybe 2nd degree hypothermia. It was when your skin starts turning purple is not a good sign. I'm just saying. And you can't no longer use your dexterity of your fingers. These are not good signs. I'm just saying. I love Grand Lake and it was too cold.
Yeah, although those sound like that might be the transitional stage to becoming a mermaid, if I'm not mistaken.
It's true. Maybe that's what it was. I didn't go to the 3rd stage, so I don't know, but it could have happened.
Right. We're leaving it open to possibilities.
It's not out of the realm of possibility, right?
Teri, what does it mean to live intentionally?
I truly believe it's about being in the driver's seat, right? Taking an active role in your life. If you think about the word intention, the word itself means an aim that guides action, right? So I have this aim that I'm heading towards, and it can be, when I think about being intentional, it can be about anything, right? I have my daily intentions planners for that reason, so that we can be very intentional with how are we creating every day? Because so often, people come up to me and say, oh, I've heard about the law of attraction. I did my vision board. And so I think that's the limits that we've placed on is like a vision board. And it's so much more than just a vision board. And that's a helpful tool in the grand scheme of things. But if you don't know how to use them, they're not going to bring what you would like to create. And people get frustrated with it. And I was like, well, why am I not, I'm putting it out on my vision board, but nothing's happening, because it requires daily action to also put that in motion. And so I think, being intentional is really having a direction and being open to all the possibilities that come along. Because I always talk about having a target versus a goal. And a target is, I'm going to hit that bullseye, but I'm also going to be open to all the other like amazing things that happen along the way. Because otherwise, if I have my like blinders on with my goal and I'm going like, I want to go here, I put these blinders on and I refuse to see some amazing things happening in my peripherals. And so just being open to all the possibilities, but having that one direction in which I'm being guided towards.
So it sounds like focus, but not being overly rigid with it, factoring in new information. We talked before we recorded here about once we learn something, it's hard to turn a blind eye to it, right? And so being open to integrating new information.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes I'll give you this quick example. A year and a half ago, I got this like download, if you will, to do a podcast and do my own podcast. And I was like, what? That's not on my bucket list. That's not on my to-do list. That's not on my top 100 things to do in my lifetime. Like, why? But it was so effortless. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to be divinely guided right now. I'm just going to say yes, because it's here. It's happening. It's so easy. And then it wasn't until like literally 6 months ago that I realized why it showed up for me. It took me over a year to figure out why it was showing up. And now I'm like, oh my gosh. And now it's opened up so many other doors and so many other possibilities. And now it's like, oh my gosh, this is why. And so it took me a year to understand it.
That is very interesting. A year, but an active year. You actively engaged with it.
A very active year. Yes. And as you know, some of the research that is said about podcasting, like some people will only last, I think it's like a few months before they're done. Like they're like, yep, tapped out, done, shows ended, because there is a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes. There's editing, there's, getting your guests, there's producing it, there's sitting down and having this conversation. There's a lot of things that go into it. And some people just be like, it's too much on my plate.
Yeah. And some people still decide to do it even once they've discovered it's too much, right?
Yeah. I think it's great. And if you have a team behind you helping you, it's fantastic. And you get to meet like incredible people, because you and I probably would not have met. I know we probably wouldn't have met through this. And this is an avenue that I'm like, this guy, Joe, is a delightful being, right? And so we get to connect and have this conversation. Some of my greatest friends have come through podcasting. I've actually even been invited to a wedding through it. And it's been like, oh my gosh, I get to be a part of someone else's life in such a different way. So love it.
I totally believe that. Yeah. The opportunity for additional human connection and genuine and sincere connections, certainly based on off of what you and I tend to talk about on our individual podcasts.
Yeah.
So Teri, would you give an example of how intentionality shows up for you in a given day? For example, let's say on a Monday in March 2022, for example.
Intentionality. So I always start my day the night before. I think it's so important. So I'm very intentional about that. I write out on my daily intentions planner, so the second to last thing that I do before I go to bed is I get really intentional what my next day is going to look like. Because when we do that, what I call it engaging the minions in my brain. So I activate all the little minions that are in my brain, and they start shooting out all this energy, this electrical signals to the universe. And it's amazing how we can start creating by design the night before. And so the brain processes information 7 times more at the last 45 minutes of our night. So that is a yummy, juicy time to start being intentional. So I write out what I'm going to be doing, if there's any tasks, if there's phone calls, because oftentimes, more often than not, that person is going to be available when I call them, or they're going to be calling me, or I'm going to receive the email in such a timely manner. And it just is like, it feels like it's all orchestrated. So it just becomes very intentional. It becomes very easy. And that's when we know when we're in alignment, because we're calling it out there, and then we're seeing it instantaneously. It's really powerful. So in my evenings is, being in planning out my day, and then also utilizing gratitude. I'm a huge fan of gratitude, and very intentional with that. And then in the next morning, I open my planner back up. I kind of review the day. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to be here on here with Joe. How do I get to show up to be on the show with Joe? So being very intentional with all of that. And then, just throughout the day, how's my energy, taking a pulse on my energy. we have currently it's snowing out and it's kind of gloomy here. And so it's kind of, in this energy where it's like, where I get to like be like, okay, it's happening outside, but I'm not going to let that gloom take over me, right? And I'm going to be intentional with my energy, keeping it in high energy, so that I'm also being clear about, continuing to create and generate today, even if it's a gloomy day outside.
That's great, right? And with a daily practice like that occurs both in the evening and the morning, you can't help but go a very short period of time before you revisit that, right? Even if you're having an off day, even if the weather's bad, it sounds like you have a daily, twice a day opportunity to recalibrate.
Yeah. And I opened it up and it's a spiral bound. So I flip it over and it's there all day. So it literally lives on the left side of me all day long. So it's like, okay, what else are we getting to create? And there's a place in there for how am I showing up? And then there's a part in the brain we're activating the reticular activation system every day, because I always look out for some sort of a signal, a symbol. It's like, okay, universe, show me a foot, show me a rainbow, show me a, whatever image or a number. Sometimes I'll put in numbers in there, like show me 222 today. And it's amazing and it's just in there to start activating and working the muscle of the reticular activation system and getting really focused on like what I call out there, I can create. And that becomes my evidence, that things can be easy. We can be very intentional with what we're asking for, and it's coming to us. And it's just, when it shows up, you're like, oh, there it is. There it is. There it is.
That's great. It sounds like you're manifesting success. Yes. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you're being intentional with creating it, right? Like these universal laws are out here for every single one of us. It's not for, and it's the only thing that's required of us is to know about them and learn about them. And once we know about them and we are conscious of them, we can use them to our total advantage. Right. And it's here, whether we believe it or not. When I first got introduced to all of this, I thought it was a little much. Right. I listened to The Secrets and I was like, okay, but whatever. But I dig down and I went into my whole like skepticism, like research. And I was like, oh, well, this is science. Like this is literally grounded in physics. And when we understand that it's grounded in physics, there's no denying it. It's so powerful. Even myself that was really skeptical about it, I was like, this sounds too good to be true. Are you serious? But now that I'm living it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like seriously, how much better can it get?
That's fabulous. So let me pivot here and ask who you enjoy working with. Is it more the people who are willing to accept these ideas on surface level, or do you get more appreciation out of working with the skeptics that need to hear the facts?
It can be either, right? Like I love watching the aha moments. And even though they're not necessarily aha moments to me, I love witnessing it in somebody else and being like, they're like, oh my gosh. And they call me up and it's so fun to watch and celebrate with them. And they'll like blast me with text messages and they're like, this just happened, like holy buckets, this just happened. And it's just so much fun. There's such great joy coming out of that because it's almost childlike, meaning it's like a child being introduced to a brand new, like Disneyland, right? Or Disney World. And it's like, there's such this innocent, like joy that oozes from them, which is so fun to be a witness of. But then, I'm open to clients that have been doing this work for a really long time because I can see that there's some new ways of having them look at or see something because it's all about the integration of it. And I think oftentimes I find people in the education stage or the transformation stage, and which is great because I can, support them. But then the real power is the integration phase, is how do we actually integrate this knowledge, this transformation into a daily practice or a daily, really a new paradigm, like really creating a new paradigm that we live in that is really going to serve us long term. And that is such a joy as well. So I'm open to both, but really, I love watching especially the women entrepreneurs, because, I truly believe that one of my greatest gifts is to help other folks have the impact. And so I always joke that my tagline should be, I help coaches help their clients, because a lot of times people will sign up for coaching, whether that's about hiring a LinkedIn expert, a social media expert, a sales consultant. It doesn't matter what kind of coach, a business coach, a strategist coach or whatever. And oftentimes what happens and I've seen this time and time again, is that the person who's hired this individual will not do the work. And it's because of fear. It's because, what if I get too big? It's because of, what if I fail? It's because, who am I, right? A little bit of the imposter sneaking up in there. There's limiting beliefs. Well, my dad said I couldn't do this. And my mom said I should have been a blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's like these stories get in the way of hiring these people to do their job. And then we sabotage it. And so if that's happening, they're not going to be able to fulfill the requirements of that coaching program because they're getting themselves in their own way. So what I love doing is partnering with those people and then helping them clear out those blocks. And then they do the work. They do the work of the sales coach. They make the phone calls. They hop on those stages. They ask for the sale. They invite people to their community, and they then themselves actually create a bigger impact in the world, and whether that's an impact of 50 people or 500 million people, or even beyond that, I just think that is what is required of us right now in this lifetime with what's happening in our world. Like, we are moving into higher and higher vibrations. And if we can have more people helping other people move into these higher vibrations, like, the world itself benefits from this.
No big deal. Just that.
No big deal. No big deal. Just putting, the world on this massive new level, right? And it's bringing about a new collective consciousness. And I think that has been why I've been put on this planet, is to help raise the vibrations of the planet. And it's so needed right now. Even in the last, 2 years, we've gone through, this pandemic, and the fear blanket got put over the entire world. And now people are coming out of the fear blanket, or out of, uncovering themselves from the fear, and they're stepping into, and there's so many new awarenesses, insights. I mean, it's been so powerful watching this, transformation happen on our planet. I come from the Midwest. And so I always tell people that, back in the day, they bring a plow out to the fields, and, we would see this. A lot of people would say, well, that's a lot of destruction. And it looks from the top, it looks like destruction, right? The plows dig deep into and unearth, but what they're doing is it's bringing about the stuff that was underneath up to the surface, right? And it's powerful. So I think that's what's been happening, is that there's been things that we've not wanted to look at or see personally, professionally, in our communities, in our families, in our world, and now it's all being exposed. And we get to look at it and what makes sense for us, what makes sense for us, what doesn't make sense for us, and then start creating new stories, new realities based on that information. And then guess what? After a tractor goes through and plows it up, it prepares it for new growth, right? That's when we get to plant the seeds of hope, plant the seeds of prosperity, plant the seeds of whatever we want to plant. And then we get to foster and nurture that. And I think that is where we are at in this planet. And I can't wait to see what we all create.
I completely agree with you. Yeah. I think having a professional who is able to help us, reframe, to shift paradigms, to shift narratives, it can be very helpful as we're, this great reckoning is happening, if you will, right? To figure out, okay, what makes sense now? There's been a lot of upheaval, a lot of thoughts are now out in front of our faces, hard to ignore. Now what do we do? And it sounds like the people you're working with are very capable. It's not about, they're not or unable to do these things. They just can't get out of their own way sometimes.
Yeah. Again, it's been conditioning, right? It's been these previous programmings. And what happens over time is that, we tell ourselves a story long and hard enough. And I would say 95% of it is not our stuff. It was created and given to us before the first 8 years of our lives. That is when the brain is developing. That is when we are taking on and creating those unconscious stories. And so most of the stuff that we are taking on as adults does not belong to us. I can tell you for a fact that most of my stuff that I took on and I believed, and then my brain activated, the reticular activation system to find the evidence to support that story. Even that story was a complete and utter lie. I always tell our brains are so powerful. It's like a fancy Google machine, because if I type in, purple elephant, you now just started thinking about a purple elephant, right? Like, our brain is always going to find the information that we tell it. And so we can tell it these doom and gloom, horrible, awful stories, or we can tell it like, hey, did you know that there's amazing abundance out there. There's more than enough money for all of us to be wealthy. There's more than enough money, or there's more than enough opportunities. There's more than enough, possibilities. There's more than enough of everything that we ever desire. And so, but we've been, held back by, oh my gosh, whatever those stories were. And we know when we were growing up, there's those stories. I mean, we can complete the sentence stems, right? About some of the stories that we were taught. And so it's really about reprogramming the brain in a new and powerful way that serves us now, right? Those thoughts and programs served us to a certain point. Maybe it made us more resourceful. Maybe it made us go after that. Maybe it made us go to college. Maybe it made us, open our own business. But then at some point it stopped serving us. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble, is when we try to pull that forward because that's all we've known, but it stops serving us. And that's when we get ourselves in trouble. That's when we hold ourselves back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about updating the narrative, right? It may have served us at one point, but it's no longer helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's time to update. I love that. Teri, what have you said no to that has made a significant impact in your life?
There's a couple things. I no longer tolerate people that are not here to lift, not here to serve, not here to, who I have in my friend group, who I have that I connect with are here that are in alignment with, creating great. And so I've had to say no to, people that are not willing to play at this bigger level. It's not that a lack of, they refuse, or they're trying to sabotage me in the process. It's like, because they're coming from a place of scarcity. It says, well, if you can't have it, neither can I. And that's not true. We all can have it, right? We can all have it. And so, being really clear, Jim Rohn always says, that who are you spending the most time with becomes, who you are, right? And so being really clear of that, really choosing to say no more to, negative Nelly, because, I had this little critical Christina, and she ruled my life for a really long time. And at some point I said, no more, no more. Like she shows up and I say, hey, and I greet her. I'm like, where, the door, where the door is, right? Again, there's just things that I'm choosing. If it's not in alignment with where I'm heading, it's okay to say no to it. And just in a general sense, I always follow the energy. And so I always use kinesiology. That's how I've been able to grow both of my businesses so quickly, is saying yes to what means yes, and saying no to what means no. And here's where I help people see that it's okay to say no, is I truly believe that we have these little shelves of possibility. And there's often times, and I can get distracted by the whole, like, oh my goodness, this is, shiny and bright and beautiful, right? But it might not be timing for it. So I invite people, write down those ideas, write down those things. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen right this second, but if you energetically test it, is it going to contribute to you right now? Because it may need some more time to have more ideas around it before you take off with it, right? And so we can put that possibility back on the shelf and say yes to it later. It doesn't mean it's not taken off the thing, just like, what? And I promise you, once you put it on the shelf, once it becomes activated and it's ready, it will not shut up. Like you promise you will not miss it, because it will not show up, and you'll be like, do this, and it will be going off for you. And so where you will be like, okay, now it's time, and we can take that off. And now I can, give my whole heart and soul to this project, or to this event, or to this whatever that you're creating.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I categorize that as good idea, not the right time.
Yeah.
That's a whole category.
Yeah. So create a journal with all these. I have a journal that's full of ideas. And I'm guessing that some of them, like my slug straw, is not going to be generated and created in this lifetime. And I'm okay with that. That's another topic for another day. But
you have a place for it.
I do have a place for it.
Whenever it's right. Yeah.
That's right.
So can you give me an example of how you say no? Like, a person's going to show up, a person with this energy, with this negative Nelly, this critical Christina, as you put it, that may not be your inner self-talk, but maybe an actual person who, because of the logistics of your lifestyle, you are forced to engage with. How do you deal with that? What's an example of how you say no to that person?
Depends on the capacity, right? Like if it's an employer role, it's a little trickier, right? But what I invite people to do, okay, from an energetic perspective, is you can dismiss, like if you're having a conversation, a casual conversation, and you know that it's not in alignment, you can easily excuse yourself and say, and just remove yourself from that conversation. You can try, changing the conversation. There's a lot of different tactics you can do right there in the moment. But what I invite people to do, and this is really fun to play with, is, protect your energy. Okay. Protect your energy so that only love and light, however you want to do it. There's many, many different ways. I just imagine stepping into one of those like little iridescent bubbles that people blow, So I step up, put myself in this bubble, only allow a love and light to penetrate through the bubble, right? That's going to be very intentional. And when you show up to events, we were talking about being intentional. What is it that you're doing to really set yourself in a high vibration? Because when you're in a high vibration, it's really difficult to connect with, if not impossible to connect with a low vibrating individual. So being intentional about showing up and how you're showing up to events, whether that's for work, for networking events, to speaking engagements, to anything that you're showing up to, even to this podcast, right? Showing up and being really intentional is like, I'm going to show up with blank, blank, blank. I'm going to show up with fun and humor and joy. I'm going to show up with humorous. I'm showing up with abundance of energy. I'm showing up with love and light. I'm showing up, whatever you're showing up with, right? And being really clear about that, because that is going to set you up for success no matter where you show up for, right? And it's physically impossible for you to really connect with those lower vibrational, energies, right? And so being really intentional is really to, connect with it in that way. I would recommend. And there's other things that you can be doing. I always, before I go anywhere, this is like a TMI probably, but I sit in my car for a good 5 to 10 minutes. So I get there early and I do a couple exercises for my brain so that my brain is ready to communicate. I'm in alignment energetically. I'll do some tapping exercises to make sure that I'm out of, quote, self-sabotage. I'll make sure that I'm really clean and clear. And oftentimes I'll tell people, if you're not in a good space, don't go. Like simply don't go, because you will attract, clients from that lower vibrational level. And what happens is, because that's not your normal state, you're just having a bad day because the weather is terrible, right? You'll show up and you'll attract those clients, referral partners, connections, or whatever at that level. And then when you go back into your normal high vibing self that you are, these clients become what they're called pitas. I'm not going to explain what that is, but a pain in the rear, And then you're like, well, why? And they become needing, whiny one. And then you're like, why did I? And that's why, right? And so if you're not feeling it, you can say, okay, I'm going to pass on it, right? I'd rather you pass on it and be really clear for the next one and be really high vibing for the next one, because it'll serve you so much more.
I love that. That's such a great example. And the specific example of you literally being in the driver's seat in this situation, right? Where you're preparing and taking control, because you can't always control the external circumstance. In fact, oftentimes you can't, like the weather or how any particular person is going to show up any particular day other than yourself. So I think that's a fabulous example.
You only have control over how you respond or react, right? And that's our choice.
Yes, I think that's a great reminder for sure. Teri, who is someone you admire, and what do you admire about them?
I always used to say, I admire always, really powerful women. And I used to do this in general sense. And over the years, I have found something, and I didn't even realize I admired her until recently. My husband's like, you talk about her a lot. And this is going to sound a little out there. I truly, after all the research and all the reading that I've done, I admire Dolly Parton. She is an extraordinary being. If you listen to her background, her story, what she had to overcome, and she has just continued to be very intentional with what she's creating and just has created an incredible empire. And being a woman at that time, having to let go of some, bad managers that didn't have her greatest intent, and her really standing up for herself, because as she's been known as the blonde with big hair and big boobs, right? But she's so much more than that. And that's almost like her, it's almost her character that she plays. But inside, she's just a brilliant, brilliant businesswoman. And what she's gone on to create and her legacy that she's living for the children that have, she's done so much around, children and literacy and learning. I just think it's like so brilliant what she's done and what she's created. And she's not done yet. Like she just recently was really interesting. She was just awarded just recently some sort of award. I think it was for the Hall of Fame of some sort, like a artist or whatever. And she actually turned it down. She goes, I haven't done enough. And I was like, wow. Like she's like, I don't want to be nominated because I haven't done enough. I haven't done my fullest potential. And I was just like, it was pretty incredible. And it just gives me chills saying that because I'm like, wow, like for her to say, you know what, I haven't done enough yet. It's just really powerful. So if you've not read her story,
that is a power move. That is a power move for sure. Yeah.
If it is a power move. And if you've not read her story, if you've not like, oh my gosh, just go. She's been extraordinary. And so just recently I was like, yeah, I love what she stands for and like what she does and, who she's become and what she's continuing to create. What an inspiration.
Absolutely. That's a great model. That's fabulous. What do you imagine some people admire about you?
Just recently my husband said to me, it's great to hear it from your spouse. I mean, we've been together for, over 23 years now. And he says to me, he's like, you know what? He's like, I admire like your tenacity, like you never give up, your determination to create more and just, who you are, and I just was like, oh, like, I hope that, I think at the end of the day, like, I think my legacy is that I hope that, when it's my time that people would have said, I'm a better person for having a conversation with Teri, or I'm a better person for knowing her, and I think any way in which I can inspire someone, either that's from an idea or a conversation, like, I think that's like I'm good, like I'm complete.
Yeah. Teri, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
I always love to share the message of hope as far as, whoever is listening to this podcast right now. And there might be some of you that says, gosh, I'm just ready to give up. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, just know that you are right there and the breakthrough happens just beyond what we're going through. And so even if you are like, feels like you're 3 feet from gold, just trust a couple more steps, and you're going to get there. So don't give up on your dreams before the magic can happen. Continue allowing yourself this time, this energy, this space, this process, keep going, keep saying yes to you. And if you need support, reach out and grab support, but know that, if you were given the idea to have this thought, to have this idea, that is yours for the taking. And so universe, God, spirit, angels, whatever you want to call it, is holding on to this dream for you. And so it's just up to you to do the work to get there. Like, it is there, it's yours. Now just go claim it. Just go claim it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a great, great message. Teri, thank you so much for your time and careful consideration of all these questions that I've been bombarding you with this morning. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. This is great. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world and bringing and sharing more light with the world. So you're a true hero.
Oh, well, I will accept that because you offered it, although I don't feel worthy. But thank you. Thank you very much, Teri. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Intentionally Ever After, hosted by intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek. If you would like to have your own intentional conversation with Joe on or off the air, visit intentionallyeverafter.com. Thanks for listening.